All right.
Hello, friends. It's us again. The Caribou Kids. Brought to you by Caribou.
Yeah, he got it right this time. Good for him.
I only got it wrong once, you know.
Well,
May cause irrepressible happiness.
I'm gonna rub your nose in that forever.
I know, I've noticed.
So you rub my nose in things I did in.
Oofda!
What do you rub my? You rub my nose in things I did in what was it? 8th grade, 9th grade.
Of course. I mean, that's my right.
Of
So,
course. Right. You're the.
Still, kids still.
That's your job as the adopted older brother, huh?
I guess so. Minnesota made for 25 years. Try 30, almost 7. Jeez.
Anyway.
37.
All right.
Okay. Anyway.
All right.
Cheers.
So I know we decided today. I know we've talked about some of we have talked about some of our favorite characters. We talked about the side characters a little bit. So today we're going to talk about what is kind of almost a character in itself, and that is, of course, the ring. So anyway, I don't know. Do you have some
character
thoughts?
in and of itself. Yeah, it is a character in and of itself.
I mean,
it is the impetus behind the entire story. So, and of course, it wields incredible power over people. So yeah, it's funny how inanimate things. I think it's funny how inanimate things become part of your, not just part of your life, but actual characters in your life, actual family members sometimes. Like I always think about how a house, more or less, is the final member of a family. And I was saying to Christy this morning, even, that it's a real shame that neither of our parents stayed in the house that we grew up in. In fact, they moved from the houses we grew up in, you know, independently the same year. And so it was kind of like we experienced 2 deaths in the family, you know, in a weird way.
Yeah.
Because your house, the house that you know, I realize a person can hate a house that they live in, but if you don't, if you love the house that you spend a lot of time in, it really is the final member of the family. So it's.
Or if you're a farmer like my parents, the property.
The land is a member of the family.
Yeah, like my dad's like, he's like, he's selling a small portion of the property. That's a huge deal. I mean, so, not that bad, but you know.
Heart, but yeah, it's farmers especially. They get almost married to the land, if you will. It's another relationship they have going in their life, and to ask them to move away from it is like, what do you mean move away from it? That's like,
you want me to die?
You want me to die? You want me to get divorced from the land? I mean, that's not going to happen. So
anyway.
we see that in the Lord of the Rings with the ring. It is actually a major character in the whole thing. And so, yeah, it's just interesting the different sway that it has over people.
Yeah, well, some of the dialogue, they actually, like, it has a mind of its own. Like, they say something happened the ring did not intend, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I know one thing, I think we've touched on this in other sessions, but I think, you know, I mean, I don't even know what it necessarily represents, but it's a huge thing for me. It's like, it's sin. You know, I mean, well, excuse me, some people who, like, I was watching some stuff about making the movie, and they're like, well, what does all this stuff represent? And they said, well, it's almost simplistic to say it only represents, like, one thing or whatever.
Sure.
It's like, well, yeah, but I think, for me, I'm like, watching it, I'm like, it's sin. It's sin. Because I know I always get goosebumps, like, well, the first point in the very beginning of the movie when they're talking about, like, the War of the Ring, when Sauron was first initially defeated, and the line that says, the ring passed to a Isildur who had the one chance to destroy evil forever, but the hearts of man are corrupted. And then fast forward when Elrond is telling Gandalf about the weakness of men, and he says, I took Isildur into the heart of Mount Doom, and says, cast it into the fire. And just that moment where Isildur says, no, and then, like, wraps it up, you know, wraps his hand around it and walks away. And I was just thinking about this today. I was like, I don't know, I was thinking about, well, we can get that into a second, but, you know, I'd always get goosebumps because I'm like, how often do we have people in our lives where we're doing something stupid, and we have people in our lives who are like, cast it into the fire, get rid of that, get rid of that. How often do we say no and walk away, and maybe it doesn't, you know, it might destroy our lives, it might destroy our family's lives, you never know what it might do, but I just think it's like, kind of the tag that I think, like, well, what is your precious? Because we all have our precious.
Yeah. You know, and I think The Ring is kind of like poetry in this way, that 10 different people can read a poem and all focus on a different facet,
Mm-hmm.
or all interpret certain lines different ways. So, yes, I think sin. I think it can represent sin. I think it can represent, you know, those precious things that we keep. You know, is it hidden? Is it safe?
Like
you know,
our items, like
yeah,
money or
like Gandalf says to Frodo when he comes back, and 17 years later in the book, as you pointed out. But he, is it hidden? Is it safe? Well, so often that's how we keep our sin, hidden away from everybody.
Mm-hmm.
The worst thing is for it to get into the light. It's kind of like a vampire, like the light has shone in and exposed this evil. Kind of like in Aslan's How, to combine the two stories. How here's Nickabrick that brings the three evil presences into the, or is it just two?
Three. No,
is he the third? He's the third evil.
He's the third.
It's
just two.
So but they operate in darkness, and mystery, and it's just gross. It's gross stuff.
Yeah.
But the ring also, to me, is all about power. What do you do with power? There's this quote, and I forget who said it, if it's George Santayana or some philosopher, but he says, absolute power corrupts absolutely. You've probably heard that quote before. For most people, for almost all people, having absolute power over another person, over a group of people, over a nation, whatever it might be, leads to the corruption of their heart. They are turned away from what is good. Every once in a blue moon, you encounter somebody who can deal with power the right way. This, I think, is why Abraham Lincoln is far and away the greatest president ever, because he had real power over a nation, over states, over what was going to happen in this country, and he didn't use it well. There are people who say, hey, he threw journalists in jail without habeas corpus, all this stuff.
He invoked the 13th. Well, he's the one who invoked the third. What is the amendment that allows?
Yeah, the 13th Amendment.
13th Amendment.
And so what did he do with his absolute power in America? He used it to set people free. Well, who does that sound like?
Jesus.
Sounds like Jesus, right? Jesus carried the power, the burden of power, having all power. He says to his disciples before he ascends to heaven, all power has been given to me. Now you go.
Yeah. Well, I know.
He uses it to give it away. He uses it to free people from sin. He uses it in that way. And so I think a lot of what the ring represents, if you will, in the trilogy is, what do people do with power? People that are power hungry are going to use their power that they obtain in life to abuse, to shut people down, to whatever, use people for their ends. And what we see in Frodo is just something very unusual.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem to be so affected,
at
least until the very end.
Well, I know one thing. I almost touched on this earlier, but I was thinking about, Isildur and the choice he makes, and then you fast forward and you have Aragorn who makes the right choice.
Yeah.
And I was thinking how Elrond, is like telling Isildur, cast it into the fire. And again, I just can always close my eyes and see that Isildur is saying no and closing his and walking away.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the Fellowship, you have, I think Boromir has tried to take the ring from Frodo. Boromir's not dead yet. I don't believe he is, right? I don't think he is dead, but yet, and Frodo is asking Aragorn, well, would you take the ring? Would you destroy it? And I think the ring's actually calling to him. I'm pretty positive. Yeah, it is. And then he has the moment where he actually reaches out and then closes Frodo's hand around it and says,
powerful.
That moment is so powerful. And I just think Aragorn is such an example of like breaking a generational curse, and a real, like an extreme example of it, because, there is a moment where Arwen says to him, you'll face the same evil and defeat it. And again, like we're talking about power, he gets the power at the end. He had all this stuff, and his backstory is really interesting. I was watching a video about it, and they said he actually, before he becomes king, before the War of the Ring or whatever, he had actually gone into Gondor in disguise, not telling anyone who he was, and he was participating in battles totally, incognito. Nobody knew.
It's just so against the grain of human nature because we want recognition for who we are. It's the whole. When I was preaching a while ago on humility, and I talked about how, somebody put Edmund Hillary in his place, like, oh, that's not how you hold an ice pick. Here's the guy that first summited Mount Everest, and some dumpy little dork is telling him how to hold an ice pick, and he's and instead of going, do you know who I am? And slamming the ice pick into his brain or something, he just says thanks.
Yeah. That's not
that lack of self-importance, that lack of puffed up, overactive self-importance, it's just so unusual in human beings. We've talked about Lincoln, but George Washington too recognized that absolute power corrupts people. So what does he do when he's led the country through the revolution, led the army through the revolution, and people are like, king, make him king, and he's going, no, I reject that. Don't make me king. And I'll be president reluctantly, and I'm setting my own term limit. And George III, allegedly, King George III of England, who was his counterpart, fighting the Revolutionary War against him, losing, and then hearing that Washington had rejected becoming king, says, if that's true, he is the greatest man that has ever lived. Which I'd say, not possible. He might be the second greatest, but
because Jesus.
Yeah, but that again, that lack of self-importance, that amount of humility in a person who can grasp for power, can grasp for all the whatever riches and fame and blah blah blah, and says no. Frodo, you carry it. I can't trust myself.
Yeah.
With that kind of power.
Because he knew that it would have
corrupted him. And this is the human plight. We want to take power. Ultimately, the human plight is we want to wrestle power away from God for ourselves. I mean, look at our country. This is exactly what's happening. Oh God, you're going to set the parameter for who's a man, a woman, or whatever. No, I'm going to give me that fruit.
We're right back to the
fruit.
Right back to the Garden of
Screw
Eden.
you. And that's kind of the flavor of humanity all the way back to the beginning.
Yeah, well, I mean, I see parallels. I was thinking about it in preparation for doing this video. I was thinking about Isildur and Aragorn, and I know we talked about the ways Aragorn is like Jesus, and I was thinking, well, another real way is that Isildur is very much like Adam to me, or Adam and Eve. He causes. I think mankind was already kind of starting to fall, but he's the one that pushes it, allows evil to endure. And, and Aragorn is the one who sets right, participates in setting right everything that he'd done wrong, and then I know Jesus, is it scholars that call him, or is it actually saying Jesus, say in the Bible he's the last Adam, or he's a...
Well, it's in the Bible, Paul discusses this in Romans 5, I think it is, and the writer of Hebrews discusses this as well. Okay. They both talk about the difference. The new the new Adam, but he was no new Adam. He was in fact a completely different type of savior, type of man. And so don't model yourself after Adam.
No,
model yourself after
Jesus.
This new, this is the new covenant. I love that terminology in the communion liturgy, if you will. People say, oh, we're so against liturgy at this church.
It's Pentecostal.
Every time we take communion, we read liturgy, if you will.
Oh, we read the scripture. I don't know if other denominations do.
Right, and it says, this is a new covenant in my blood. Adam couldn't get it done. The old covenant was brought in, that was an old covenant, and it was in the blood of animals. Now you have a new covenant in my blood. And so, again, Jesus... what did he do with the power? He carried that mantle all the way to the cross. Like, that's a weird way to use your power. A totally unusual way. Totally not the way Boromir wanted to use power. Totally not the way that Sauron or Isildur wanted to use power. Not the way Gollum wanted to use power. And ultimately, the power thing, the power trip, the whatever, even got to Frodo in the end. And about the only person we see that isn't affected is Sam. I got it. I mean, and Aragorn. Those are the two guys that like they recognize that this power is it's gonna be a bad thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I had there was somebody I was talking to, and she's like, because I said something about, I think I said something about how as much as I like Frodo, he doesn't hit my top 5 list character. I don't know what I said, which is weird because you feel like you should like him more because he's the main character, but unfortunately, I like the other main characters much better.
I think you'd have to read the whole series of books and then go, I judge him from the book, not necessarily from the movie, because the movie, every actor puts their own flavor on things, and he can come across as kind of a little wimpy boy, at times in the movies.
Yeah.
So,
well, part of it is too. Again, you're contrasting him when you have these like men's men doing their thing, this man's man doing his thing.
Sure.
But I mean, I told you, I guess. Well, I know I told you that my boss is like, oh, she thought Aragorn was more the main character than Frodo, so I asked her again a couple days ago or last week. I said, hey, Steph, who's the main character in Lord of the Rings? Random question. She thought for a second and said, well, I want to say Aragorn, but I'm biased because I like him so much as a character. I said, yeah, me too. And my other boss said, he said the same thing. He's like, well, I have a really hard. He's the same as us. Like, well, who's the main character? I don't know which one it is. Yeah. It's so hard. But anyway.
But it's kind of interesting because we always talk about the book versus movie, and most people are of a mind that a movie can never come close to touching, how good and how deep and how intricate and how whatever emotionally charged and whatever that a book is. Most people get irritated because the movie doesn't follow the book. Kind of like me with several of the movies.
The Narnia books. The Narnia movies.
Right. And they never can get it right, and they never can whatever, and they don't portray Peter right, and all this stuff. And I would say the same kind of thing can happen with, imagine if a person only had ever watched The Chosen, for instance, or The Passion of the Christ, or the Jesus film from back in the day, or whatever. Imagine if they had only ever watched those and had never read the Gospels.
That one too.
You form a different. You have all these actors portraying Jesus, which I think would be a scary thing if somebody came to me and was like, "Will you play Jesus?" And first of all, I'd say, "Are you kidding? Look at me. I'm not Middle Eastern." But
is the guy playing Jesus in The Chosen Middle Eastern?
He certainly looks like it, and
he could be Hispanic
Jonathan Ruomi. What is his name? He very easily could be Middle Eastern. But,
yeah, but I mean, I guess.
But some of the people in there, like the guy that plays Matthew, is of Indian descent, like from India.
You can kind of see in his eyes a little bit.
Yeah, and a couple of the guys are Latino.
That's what I was gonna say.
So I mean, they have the right kind of features, dark hair, dark eyes, darker skin. Yeah. So
yeah, I have somebody.
It would be scary. It'd be scary because I'm like, I don't want to misrepresent Jesus.
Well, someone that come to me is like, "Do you want to play someone in like Mary Magdalene?" I'd be like, Are you making a joke? I'm about as white as you can get. So
well, it would just be tough. It would be tough because I wouldn't want to misrepresent Jesus in any way. And I just think, I don't know. Some of these characters in the books might come across differently than they do how they're portrayed on film. And, notably, they often get very handsome men to play Jesus. But Isaiah, in Isaiah 53, says there will be nothing about him that will draw us to him. Scholars have generally taken that to mean he was not a particularly beautiful physical specimen of a man. That was not something that God, the Godhead 3 in 1, saw fit to, like, we're going to make him the most beautiful, charismatic person that has ever lived. No, he was powerful because of his love, his compassion, his joy, his whatever. And so that's one way in which Aragorn is unlike Jesus. Maybe if Jesus was a plain-looking person, then the comparison breaks down somewhere, Catherine. At least with who they cast. Now, I don't know how he's described in the book, again.
Yeah,
because I would have to actually go to the source.
Well, I know. Well, yeah, going back to like they cast these handsome actors to play Jesus, where I'm like, well,
and often white.
Well, when they played, the movie Son of God, I think it came out like it was like, Roma Downey and her husband had directed it. I don't remember who it was exactly.
So a few years ago.
Oh yeah, like maybe like 20 2016 maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
Several years ago, and they cast whoever they cast to play Jesus. There was literally it was the Bible miniseries on TV, and then like they went and made a movie like specifically about the life of Jesus.
Okay.
And they literally were calling the guy. There was a hashtag going around, "Hot Jesus." Like, no, that doesn't do.
No.
That doesn't do.
That doesn't do.
Not saying he's not good looking. I'm just saying, yeah, I don't really want to be. I don't know. That makes sense. So,
I don't want to be blaspheming. That something of that smacks of sacrilege or something.
Yeah, and I mean, handsome actor playing Jesus, whatever. It's fine. But I mean, yeah, it's the same kind of whatever. But I know I remember reading. I remember watching a video about like book versus movie or whatever.
Yeah.
And one little, trait Tolkien slips in there with the physical comparison to Aragorn. It's like, I think he was called. There's a line or something about like he wasn't this gorgeously handsome man. So they did make a mistake in that, but
it's hard,
to get the ladies to like it.
Sure, when you're
I'm not kidding.
Right. When you're thinking kingly, you're always associating kingly with certain qualities.
Gorgeously handsome.
Oftentimes, yes, and some of them are. I mean, for crying out loud, both the first two kings of Israel, it goes out of its way in the book of 1 Samuel to say Saul was head and shoulders above the rest and the most handsome man in Israel. Then it comes along and it says David was ruddy and handsome. Like Absalom, who, had he not died, I believe was in line to be the third king, was the most handsome man in Israel. There was no flaw or blemish in him, except in his heart, which was a pretty dang big flaw. But anyway, we just associate these certain things, and then of course they have to be noble, and of course they have to be chivalrous, and be people of integrity and of great bravery and all these things. And no, sometimes the king is a fat, dumpy dude like King Loon, but who happens to have the heart of a lion. So we get too caught up. The cinema version, I think the whole point we're making here, sorry for the 20-minute aside, the whole point we're making here is that we sometimes get swept along by Peter Jackson's version of Frodo, let's say.
Yeah.
When Tolkien's version of Frodo, maybe he is just the best. But again, having only read the third book, I'm going, I don't know. I associate Frodo with Elijah Wood, and Elijah Wood can be like, ah!
Yeah, well, my mom actually complained about that. Complained about it too. She complained about, she's like, because I said how much I liked the acting, which honestly, I'm not saying Elijah Wood's a bad actor.
No,
he's a great actor. And I mean, Sean Astin's a fantastic actor, and I mean, they're all really good actors. And my mom's like, we don't really get to see how they act, because all they do is slam into each other and kill people. Or like, and then she said the only shots they really do are Frodo's. They are zooming in on Frodo's face, and then I'm like, that's the point, mother.
Yeah, but
I complained.
But I mean, sometimes the best acting is painful to watch. I think of Bruce Dern in the Cowboys, or in Cowboys, what is it called, where he's just so unbelievably evil. His acting is phenomenal. His character, you want to strangle, or
Well, that's what my mom
toss off a cliff, or
my dad would be like, I hate that character. I don't like that actor, and I'm like, that means they're I'd be like,
they're doing their job.
Yeah, that means they're doing their job.
Yeah.
So. Well, I mean, I keep saying I almost have a bigger admiration for actors who can play villains successfully than I do for actors that play the good guys, because I would be much harder for me to play a villain really well than like a funny character.
Well, and it's why people want to do versatile roles, because they don't want to be typecast as only a good person, because it requires something different from them and challenging in a different way to be a villain.
Yeah, I know when. Well, I mean, you kind of associate like Sean Astin with playing the good guys, because he was on an episode of Monk, which is like a TV show my mom and I watch all the time, and I got so excited the second he got on screen, because I really like that actor. I'm like, oh, I love Sean Astin, I'm so excited, and then he shoots his butler within like 30 seconds of being on screen, and I'm like, oh,
wow,
guess I don't like him anymore. It's like,
but he probably does very well playing the villain.
Well, he played a villain in another movie too, but I mean, he plays. Yeah. He's a very versatile actor.
That just shows talent, right? So anyway, to get back to reality.
Yeah, to the ring.
To the ring. Yeah, I think it represents all kinds of things, and I think what it draws out of characters in the books, in the series, is it somehow lays bare what is in your heart. And that is a useful thing, but it's also a scary thing because oftentimes what's in our heart is pretty not great.
Because like with Sam, it shows that how pure his heart is.
Yeah.
Kind of with Merry and Pippin. Well, Merry and Pippin aren't.
They're not really around the ring, but I mean, one of them is, when he gets around the what's the crystal ball thing, the Palantir. When he gets around the Palantir, it shows what's in his heart. What's in his heart is an unquenchable curiosity, but it's not just curiosity. It's like he knows this thing is bad, but he can't stay away from it. Well, what does that sound like again? Sin. Sounds like sin.
Yeah.
Like, I know this is bad, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah, I know I shouldn't be sleeping around. I know it's going to have consequences. I know I shouldn't be.
I know I shouldn't smoke,
drunk.
but I'm going to. I know I'm right. I mean, on and on and on the list goes. And the ring just has an amazing way of pulling out from somebody what's in their heart. And in the case of Gollum, you actually see the physical transformation. He goes from being this apparently somewhat loving, compassionate, whatever person.
There's a little something
to being,
going
yeah,
on.
he's maybe a little doofy or whatever, but that ring just totally corrupts him. And over time, although it keeps him alive, it also makes him waste away into he's not really human anymore. He's, or whatever he was in the first place. He's in between. He's like an animal, just stuck on this one thing, my precious. So, whereas, there are others who seem much more impervious to the power of the ring, and to which I say that is impressive.
Yeah, like Boromir. I don't know. I mean, I think I've heard that some people are like, oh, if you want to have more of an understanding of Boromir, watch like the extended editions or something like that, because you understand like there's like I don't remember what it was, but I think what happened, I think I've seen like a clip of it or something like that. I think he was sent by his dad to go get the ring or whatever, and I don't know if he saw because of the way Denethor treated, it's Denethor, right?
Yeah,
his dad treated his brother. If there was like, oh, the love that my dad has for him must be very conditional. I don't know what. So, and his heart was like he wanted to, do the right thing, impress his dad or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, it's probably more complex than we are allowed to see in the first film. But it's just there are certain things in life that show our true cards. And in the Lord of the Rings, the ring shows people's true cards. In life, like I'm preaching about this on Sunday, out of James 3, it is our words. Our words show our true cards. And you say, oh, it's just joking. Really? I don't think so. Jesus himself says, your words come from the overflow of what's in your heart. So what you're talking about all the time is what you love. And where you spend your money, where your treasure is, your heart is. So there are two things that show our true cards. What do we spend all our money on? That's what we love. What are we speaking out? That's what we love. Aragorn's so hot. That's in your heart. Of course I have to throw that in there. Our words are the litmus test for what is really going on in our heart. That's straight out of Matthew 12. So, anyway, point is, one of the litmus tests, major litmus tests in the Lord of the Rings is the ring.
Yeah, and
so
I don't know. I had something.
You were gonna say something, but then I distracted you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine. I don't know, but
Anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. And like, I don't know. And then I don't know. I just think it is true about, like you said, it can be sin, it can be power, whatever. And I don't know. Yeah, I know what we were talking about. Like you had said, I know you had said in one other thing, like, well, what does Gollum want with the ring? Because it's like he doesn't seem to want the power. So I don't know. I don't know what you think about Gollum, but
yeah,
he is such an interesting character. And again, one of my bosses was like, I can't. Smeagol bothers me. I hate him. I sometimes I don't even watch the parts where he's on screen. I'm like, I don't like him. But it's like, I think he's one of the most interesting characters ever because he's so complex. He's like, he's not just like three-dimensional or whatever. He's like so multifaceted or whatever. He's not
just one-dimensional or two-dimensional. He's very complicated. Yeah, I think one of our problems in life, period, is we have an addiction to comfort.
Mm-hmm.
I am so addicted to comfort. I am, whatever. It's going to affect the way I eat, sleep. It's going to affect where I go.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to affect what I watch. I can't watch that because it's too uncomfortable. Well, you know
like the news or whatever.
Like Smeagol on screen. I can't watch that. That just bothers me. Well, man, I look at the Gospels and I look at the Book of Acts and like how often was the way that Jesus or the Holy Spirit moved comfortable for anybody? Pretty much 0% of the time.
I think it was,
he was the most uncomfortable, and you got the Pharisees coming along going, "Oh, I can't watch this. I can't watch Smeagol on screen. It's too uncomfortable. I can't watch Jesus heal this person and say these to them because I'm uncomfortable, and I want to be comfortable. I want to be in control."
Yeah.
All the time of everything going on around me, especially my emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, sounds pretty Scandinavian,
mm-hmm.
right? So,
well, I wasn't saying it, but the person said was wrong about Smeagol. I'm just saying it's a matter.
I am. No, it's just a matter of, yeah, whatever. That's fine for them. I just think, whatever. We're addicted as Americans to comfort, convenience. Yeah. This is not good in our relationships in life because guess what? Relationships will be uncomfortable. This is not good in our Christianity because following Jesus will be uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. But we're also American, so we're addicted to comfort. So it's a clash of worlds, right?
Well, you think it was comfortable for, for the, the disciples, a lot of the situations? I don't know.
Never.
You think it was comfortable to be standing there watching Jesus, when he's directly asked by the Pharisees about what they should do with a woman caught in adultery, and he's just standing there? A lot of people are like, I wonder if he was writing their sins in the dust. That's what I actually kind of believe that, actually.
I mean,
I'm excited for the Chosen to get to points like that.
That's an excellent theory. I mean, could have been writing specific sins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This dude right here. This dude, I mean, not that he would be pointing them out, but they wouldn't be so thick that they didn't get it. So, I think it's interesting to talk about. Fellowship of the Ring.
But another thing too is going back to this whole, we have our people that are like, get rid of this thing in your life, right after Bilbo, because Bilbo only uses the ring a couple different times, right? He uses it in The Hobbit, and then he uses it at the beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah.
And Gandalf, because he puts on the ring to disappear from his birthday, right? Just for fun, basically. Mm-hmm. And just for fun, we can just kind of laugh off. Oh, it's just fun to do this thing, whatever. And then we see, and then Gandalf follows and was like, oh, I'm sure you think that was terribly clever. And then they're having this whole conversation about, well, should you get rid of it, or are you going to leave the ring? You really need to leave the ring. And Bilbo is getting corrupted, and he's like, you're just trying to steal it. You just want it for yourself.
Yeah.
And then, Gandalf, of course, does that whole thing where he, like, throughout, which is just a great scene in general, and then he says, I'm not trying to rob you. I'm trying to help you. Mm-hmm. I mean, come on. Mm-hmm. How often, if that's not a parallel for life, how often do you have, like...
Exactly.
Where...
I'm not trying to steal your fun. I'm trying to save your soul. Kind of thing. I think of these kids that go down to spring break and they're like, oh, it's going to be amazing, so much fun. We drink themselves to death.
Oh, you mean like...
Or, end up getting assaulted by somebody.
Yeah,
I mean, it all seems so fun, so lighthearted, so blah, 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 and you actually end up wrecking your life. Or die. I mean, kids die every year on spring break. Mm-hmm. Having fun, Mm-hmm. Yeah. Doggone it, isn't that what we do with sin all the time? We go, yeah, it's a bit of lighthearted, glib, whatever. No, it's actually killing you. Mm-hmm. It's actually killing you.
Yeah. Oh, it's just a couple of pictures on my phone.
Yeah, it's just whatever. It's just
it's not that bad.
We schmooze with sin, we justify it, we make space for it, and then we're like, wait, why am I dying in life? Why is everything, Mm-hmm. You invite the devil into your house, and then you're like, what? Mm-hmm. What? You wanted to kill, steal, and destroy?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually my job description.
Well, I remember, I don't think I have it. I think I mean, I kept it for a really long time, but I remember when 50 Shades of Grey was coming out, and you were still the youth pastor at that point, I remember, and you gave us bookmarks that said, reading 50 Shades of Grey is like throwing yourself under a moving bus while screaming it won't hurt that bad. Like, that sticks in my mind.
It's definitely what I wrote on a... Oh, man. Genius, kids. It's genius.
So whatever. I mean, you could say, like, you could say doing whatever.
Whatever sin.
Yeah. It's like throwing yourself on... Or another line I remember you saying, yeah, if you want to read 50 Shades of Grey, that would be like going home tonight. It was like January or February. It was really... I think it was February. Or I think the movie came out in February. I think the irony was it came out on Valentine's Day or something like that.
Right.
And you said,
it's a date movie.
People, that would be like you going home tonight. It's really cold. It's Minnesota. And throwing open your windows and your doors and waking up in the morning saying, why am I cold? Mm-hmm. Or maybe you're talking, or you wouldn't go home tonight and open all your doors and windows and let the cold air in.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's
you wouldn't do that.
It's just, it's like carelessness online, which I've often compared to, you got some prowler sneaking around your house, looks like a thief, smells like a thief, looks like a creep, and then he's like, who is it? A creep! Thief! And you're like,
sure,
really? Creep! Unlock the door and let him right in. I mean, that's what people do all the time online, but somehow they compartmentalize it into thinking, oh, this is going to be fine. It'll be fine. I'll be fine. No worries.
Well, and then you have and then again you contrast, all these contrasting characters. Gandalf, who is like, Frodo tries to get him to take the ring just because he doesn't want it anymore, or he doesn't want to deal with the getting rid of it or whatever. And Gandalf says, "No, don't tempt me. I can't. Mm-hmm. I can't take it because he had a certain level of power already.
Yeah,
and the ring would have corrupted him."
But he's being offered the wrong kind of power.
Yeah.
And we're right back to the George Washingtons, Abraham Lincolns, Jesus is the very few who are able to say either that kind of power will corrupt me, or in Jesus' case, I will take that kind of power and I will systematically give it away for the betterment of my people, my followers, and all of humanity. Mm-hmm. So, anyway.
Well, I know someone, I guess I was going to say this earlier and I got distracted, but I mean, I distracted myself, and someone I was talking to said, well, because I was saying how, I'm such a bigger fan of Sam than of Frodo or whatever, and which is, I think that's pretty much everybody. And she said, and I said, I don't know, Frodo just isn't my favorite or whatever. And she's like, she said, you say Frodo wouldn't have gotten far without Sam or whatever, but it's like, she said that she thinks that if Sam had the ring, it would have destroyed him. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it would have.
Yeah, I mean, it's different. It's not different. The same.
Because he didn't actually have the ring for a very long time.
You see Jesus saying this to his own followers. You've got Peter making these grand declarations. I will go with you, even to the death, and then 5 minutes later he's denying that he even knows Jesus. Mm-hmm. Okay, Peter, nice work. You got James and John, who, when Jesus is like, can you drink the cup that I am about to drink? And they're like, yes, we can. They don't know diddly.
Is that when
that's when they're asking if they can sit on either side of him in his new kingdom, and he's like, can you drink the cup that I'm going to drink? And they're like, of course we can. Mm-hmm. It's the easiest thing in the world to say when you're not the one. You're not the one headed for the electric chair, and you're like, stay strong, buddy, all the way to the end. And I don't know. Yeah, Sam is not the one carrying the ring. Had he been, we probably would have seen the exact opposite.
Frodo
Frodo strong for him when he was, getting crushed under the weight of this thing. Yeah,
well, that's like someone had pointed out that said, it's toward the end of the third movie when he's been captured by the orcs or whatever, whoever has him. I think it's the orcs. And they had taken his clothes or whatever. It's like you can really see that his neck had literally gotten bloody from the weight of the ring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was a burden that he carried around all the time,
And then again, we right back to the sin or whatever. When it's gone, when they've thrown it into Mount Doom and they manage to get out, his first thing he says, "It's done. It's gone." And I mean, yeah, he had to get his finger bitten off to get rid of it. But I mean, when we actually do like get rid of it, whether it's like maybe it's throwing your phone into a lake, I think you suggested that one time, or smashing your computer, or not whatever doing, like I think I remember like I know what it was. I think it was a former pastor of this church, Pastor Hollis, saying, maybe if you have a thing with donuts, don't drive by the donut shop on the way to work or whatever like that. I don't remember. I just remember someone saying, I changed my route slightly and so it took longer to get there to work or whatever. He was talking this about somebody else. Said, I'm more physically healthy because I don't get donuts. I'm more spiritually healthy because I pray during my longer drives or whatever like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
there's always going to be some sacrifice involved.
Yeah,
right?
but I just think that, that how often do we say, like we get to the end, like we've gotten rid of whatever our issue is, or not gotten rid of it, but confessed it. How often is it just like, oh, wow, this freedom that.
Yeah, the freedom. It's like a fog lifts. It's like a spell breaks, and right now I think we're under a worldwide spell, frankly, and I'm not just talking about COVID, I'm talking about a sin spell. We thumb our nose at God. He allows people to, go off into the depravity of their own minds, and we're kind of under this spell, and it's like, anytime a person comes to Jesus, there's something that just, what? The scales fall off. It's like Paul in Damascus, so, anyway. But,
I don't know. Yeah, it's just amazing.
It is.
The freedom, or it could be rage or whatever, like, you can confess your, lay down your burdens or whatever.
Can be any number of things.
Yeah.
Including things that we consider JV sins, like I'm going to be talking about on Sunday. Having a dirty mouth, having a negative mouth, having a gossipy mouth, a lying mouth, so.
Well, I know, this kind of goes along with it, but I remember a pastor talking about, like, I don't know what he was talking about. He was talking about, like, sins and stuff. And he said, this is the problem with some people. We put the weight of a disputable matter. We put the weight of an undisputable on a disputable, and a disputable weight of a disputable. Like, we reverse them, because he said, we disguise gossip as, let's pray for this person. They're having a really hard time. And, yeah, with this blah, 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 blah. And then, but, oh, wait, you had a glass of wine at Applebee's with your dinner? You're going to hell in a handbasket. Yeah. Anyway.
Yes.
Sorry, that was an aside. But yeah, that's such an interesting.
But I mean, you look at some of the lists where Paul puts gossip or slander, and it's like he's putting them right alongside all this crazy stuff, adultery and murder and whatever. So yeah, it's a big deal. But anyway,
yeah,
I think we got to wrap it up.
Yeah.
But this has been good. I like these discussions, talking. Like, how do I deal with power? What little preciouses do I keep around that need to go? What have I had over the abyss? And I'm like, I just can't. I can't and won't give it up. I mean, these are questions that should come back around to me, not just go, oh, Isildur, oh, Frodo, oh, you guys are so weak. No, I'm weak. There are things that it was right there. It was right there, and I could have let God just take it away. But I want to keep that precious.
Well, I know that's. Well, I know, yeah. Or like, I keep talking about. I don't know. It's when I was thinking about like going back to Chronicles of Narnia, but it's like I want to be Lucy. This faith and this trust and whatever. But how often am I the Susan? I would love to be the Sam. I would love to be the Aragorn. But how often am I the Isildur, the Frodo, the Gollum? I mean.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it really just needs to come around all the way full circle to us. What am I doing with the sin that so easily entangles, and what am I doing with power? Because there are power differentials in my life. I have been given certain amounts of power in my family, in this church, in my relationships, and how do I use it?
Exactly. Like,
am I using it to make God famous?
Yeah, like as parents, are you being loving parents to shepherd and teach your children, or are you being control freaks?
Exactly. Do not, what's the word, aggravate your children. I mean, the Bible says that more than once.
Yeah.
Do not
I love that verse. We should get it.
Yeah.
We should get that hung up in our home.
Frame that one and then take it down when you have kids of your own.
Yeah, me that has no children and no husband.
Yeah,
Anyway.
but you probably will at some point, so, you know.
Yeah.